Welcome back to Asia Talk. Again, we're here with comedian Dan Nainan. Now, Dan, you talk a lot about your family background in your act, and more than a few times, your parents especially figure into it. Now, are they pretty supportive of being kind of made fun of every night?
Oh yeah, well, a lot of the jokes are things that they actually said, and like the donut thing or the immigrant thing. I mean, these are all things my father and mother have said, and so they love it. They love coming to my shows. They love watching. They're very supportive. Yeah, and it's funny. Parents get a lot more supportive when you can make a living doing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So when you first decided you were going to go into it, was it hard for them?
Well, I mean, I was still working at Intel, and so I mean, of course, they were really supportive.
Could they see that in you, that you had that kind of comedian inside you somewhere?
When I would do these voices at the dinner table, my dad was like, "Yeah, you should do acting or comedy or something." So yeah, I guess they saw that early on. So
here we go, Dan Nainan.
So I'm driving with my parents one day, and we see these cows grazing in a field. So my dad says, now there is a word that can have a lot of different meanings. Graze, for example. For example, a cow can graze. And then I say, or you can be grazed by a bullet. And then my mom says, or it's a kind of a donut. Did anybody not get that? Now, I told that joke, it's a true story, by the way. I told that joke at a show for 5,000 Japanese people. Nobody got it.
Now, in your act, you're pretty upfront about your ethnicity. Has it been an advantage to you or a disadvantage?
I think it's been a tremendous advantage because I remember asking my teacher in that first class I took, do you think it's going to be a disadvantage, being minority and mixed or whatever? She goes, Dan, this is going to be your greatest advantage. And she's been totally right about that, very prophetic. And it's a phenomenal advantage. I mean, I perform for a lot of Asian crowds, and that's where I'm making the bulk of my money right now. And obviously I couldn't do it if I was a white comedian. So it's phenomenal.
Now, you do a lot of shows for Asian audiences, like
Right.
you just mentioned, but you also come in front of, just the general audiences as well. Now, how do you make your jokes also really relatable to them?
I think it's really important to do that consciously, to make your jokes relatable to any audience, because if you only perform for a certain segment, then that cuts your market down. So if I can make fun of Asian and it's something that mainstream people can understand, then that just makes your market larger and you can get a lot more work. So I make sure that every single joke I do is something that everybody would understand, not just Asians.
So give us an example.
Well, let's see. The thing with my mother's quote when she talked about the donut thing, I mean, this is something that Asian audiences can understand and also a mainstream audience can understand, that everybody can understand. So, and they know because they understand that sometimes Japanese people have a problem distinguishing the L and the R. And so they can relate to it. Japanese audiences can understand because they know that they have that problem.
Or also the telemarketer thing I think I've seen you do, because that's a problem that, I mean, it's not a problem, but it's an issue that everybody deals with.
Oh, you mean the tech support?
Right.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm half Indian and I cannot understand what some of these people are saying. And it's so frustrating to call them and, how are you? Oh, fine. How are you? Oh, very good. Thank you for asking. And so, yeah, everyone can relate to that because everyone's called up tech support at these companies and usually it's an Indian person.
Now, how do you get your jokes?
Well, some comedians just sit there with a word processor and bang their head against the wall and try to come up with, say, 10 jokes today. And others, like myself, it's much more organic. You're walking down the street, you hear something funny in a conversation, you're talking with your friends at dinner, and these are like what my teacher calls a raw material. This is where you get material from, and so it comes from more like just spur of the moment, organic conversations, thoughts, and so on. I just jot them down into my trio, and they're preserved for eternity.
Oh, well,
And backed
always,
up.
always in the digital ether.
Right, of course.
So do you try your jokes out on friends, or do you save that for audiences?
I think if you go to your friends and say, hey, I want to try this new joke, then immediately then there's going to be like a, kind of a resistance to it. Kind of like asking a girl, can I kiss you, instead of just doing it. Mm-hmm. I think the best way is just to mention it in conversation as if you just thought of it, and your friends laugh, and then you take it in front of, I do it in front of a class. I still take the class over here at the American Comedy Institute, mm-hmm. and I think that's the best place to try new jokes. And if it works in the class, then I'll say, okay, now I can try it at a show and see what happens.
Now, you bill yourself as a 100% clean comedian. Now, is there a big market for that?
Yes. It's really important to shower. No, I'm just kidding. There's a tremendous market, and the market for clean comedy is a superset. It's probably 10 times or 100 times that of a dirty comedian. Because if you're a dirty comedian, you can work in the comedy clubs and make, whatever, $25 or nothing a night, mm-hmm. or you can work clean and do a corporate show and make $10,000 in a night and be treated much, much better. So yes, there's a phenomenal market for clean. There's weddings, bar mitzvahs, parties, corporate functions, galas, charities, everything.
I think the thing is, though, you don't usually think of like a clean stand-up act. I mean, usually when you think of stand-up, you picture, like you said, a comedy club or something, and
right.
like, the alcohol and like, sort of smoke-filled room or
yeah.
something like that.
Hey, that's fine with me. I mean, if everyone who does comedy stays with dirty, and I'm in the 1% that does clean, then I'll get more work.
Why do you think there aren't more clean comedians?
I think it's really, really easy to do a filthy joke. It's a shortcut. Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot more difficult to do a total act that's totally clean, and I think it's just too easy to talk about sex or vulgarity or whatever, and so it's like a lowest common denominator thing. So I think there's a lot more dirty comedy just because it's just easy. It's a shortcut.
So it's more of a challenge to be a clean comedian as well.
Absolutely. But the rewards are great.
No, it's fascinating to learn about and to know that there is such a demand out there.
Yep.
And, we are going to take a commercial break again, but
okay.
when we come back, we'll talk about maybe some of your inspirations and influences as a comedian.
Okay, great.
So stay with us. We'll be back with Dan Nainan in a minute.